in the public sector with Ignite Sweden. My name is Marit Finch-Westin, and with me today I have Annika Remaeus from the City of Uppsala and Robin Griffiths from one of the many startups we work with, Mimbly. But before I welcome them into the discussion, I will just give you a quick overview of what we do at Ignite Sweden. So let's see if I can change the slide there. So Ignite Sweden, we are a non-profit and we were established about 7 years ago. Our mission is to foster innovation by connecting startups and scale-ups with innovative solutions to the needs of both public and private organizations. We were founded by some of the Swedish incubators and science parks, and we work in very close collaboration with science parks and incubators all across Sweden. We are funded by Vinnova, which is the Sweden's innovation agency, and also the Swedish Energy Agency, and the private and public sector. So I'm not going to go through all of these numbers, but as you can see, we worked with quite a lot of startups and corporate needs and public needs. We mainly focus on Sweden, but we have also worked with a few other countries. We have done many events and meetings, and we have very high follow-up on the matchmakings that we do. And over 600 pilots or tests have been paid for by the corporates or public organizations. When we started, we were working mainly with the private sector. And then about 3 years ago, or 4 years ago, we started working with public organizations. And we noticed when we were doing that we needed to adjust our process a little bit. So we added a few steps to the process to facilitate for the public organizations to participate in this kind of process. And we have actually now implemented that process also for the corporate side. So we have a 5-step process. I will talk you through it in a second. We work with about 20 public organizations. It can be municipalities, regions, or national agencies. And on the public side, we've done more than 60 pilots. And we work with all kinds of needs and challenges. It can be about climate, democracy, security, digitalization, pretty much anything. And on the side here, you see some of the partners we have worked with. So we have a process in 5 steps where we go from activating the municipality or public actor to identify the challenges and the needs for innovation, and then finding the startups that could have parts or the entire solution for those needs, matchmaking, and then follow up with the goal of doing a pilot, so a test in small scale. And then further to evaluation and then scaling the solution. And when we say pilot, we mean testing a solution in a defined small case. So not trying to roll it out straight away, but testing to learn, to be agile and to be able to be flexible, and also to learn how to deal with the technology or the new business model or whatever you're trying to implement. The tests could be either applying a new technology to one of the challenges. It could be verifying a technology, but it could also be a joint development project between the municipality or public actor and a startup that has a technology that could potentially be applied to their needs. Within the public sector, we spend a lot of time in the first step, which is activating. We make sure that there is budget and mandate and that there is a buy-in both on the management level, but also on the operational level where the need is or where the challenge is. And we also make sure that lots of like stakeholders or other parts of the organization is involved. So it could be people from procurement, it could be people from IT, or some other stakeholder in another department. And we've noticed that if we do that correctly, we can be very quick moving through the rest of the process. But it's when we don't involve enough people or the right people at the beginning that we can have problems when we try to scale up the test or try to get into a testing mode. The second step is to identifying the needs, which we do in interviews or workshops. We talk to a broad range of stakeholders in the organization to get different perspectives on the needs. And then we prioritize and cluster and decide which needs we will take forward in the process and find solutions for, which we do then in the next step, which is matching, where we both find the solution, the startups with the solutions. We have a database of about 3,000 startups registered, but we also, as I said on the first slide, we have a big cooperation with the science parks and incubators all across Sweden. So we reach out and make sure that we find the innovations out there to connect them to the needs of the public actor. We have a matchmaking, we follow up with the goal of starting some tests in small scale, and then always having scaling in mind, that we do a test, but the goal is to find a broader implementation eventually. So we have the end in mind all the time. So it's a process to guide you through finding new technology and innovation, but it's also a process to learn how your own internal processes when it comes to innovation works. So testing them. And we've noticed that many of the need owners actually redefine some of their processes after having gone through the process. But it's also a way of finding a starting point. We deal with a lot of complexity in the public sector, and sometimes it's hard to know where to start. So it's a way of finding a starting point, starting to explore that topic together across the departments, across companies, and then taking it from there. So we see it as a strategic tool to implement the strategic objectives. And maybe I will stop share there. So that's a quick little summary of what we do at Ignite. And to illustrate that, we have a case that we're going to dig a little bit deeper into. And I would like to invite you, Annika, to join the discussion. Maybe you can start with just telling us what your role is at the City of Uppsala, and then shortly a little bit about how you work with innovation.
Yes, thank you, Marit, and hello, everyone. My name is Annika Remaeus, and I work as Head of Unit Business Development in Uppsala Municipality or Uppsala City. And I have two responsibilities here, both supporting the local startup community, but the second part is to help the organization increase its innovation capabilities. And we worked with the Ignite process for 5 years, and I look forward to share some of that work, learnings over the years and where we are now here with you today. And I'm sitting here in the innovation lab in Uppsala, and a year ago we put together a film to explain how we work with collaboration to drive our innovation capacity. So maybe, Annika, you can share that.
Of course. Movie time. It's only 3 minutes, but then you get a feel for, and we'll take it from there.
And we don't have the sound.
Cannot you hear the sound?
No, it's very quiet.
That's weird. It worked.
We did try this a few minutes ago before everyone got in, and then it worked perfect. So
Yes, it did. So that's
let's try it again. And if it doesn't work, we'll add the link to the film in the chat, and you
Yes.
can look at it later.
okay. I will try once more. Does it work?
Well, Uppsala is a fast-growing city, but we also want to be a sustainable city, a sustainable municipality. We have ambitious goals. We want to be climate neutral by 2030 in only 8 years. And after that, we want to be climate positive. And startups are really important for us. Through them, we get access to new technology, new ideas, and new innovations. And we see them as part of the municipality, as our own R&D department.
We collaborate very closely with our colleagues within the innovation support system. I have colleagues in the room behind me right now that are talking about innovation, sustainability, and how they can work together based on our challenges that we try to define and then expose both to startups and innovation support experts, students, and researchers. So one example is a few years ago when we realized we had problems that the electricity would not be enough for the city to grow. And we needed a number of technical solutions to fix this. And Ignite Sweden, that match public sector to startups, helped us formulate a challenge that could be met by startups, in this case, Twin.
They presented a problem, challenge that they have here in Uppsala. It's a capacity problem. So with our system, we had a solution for this and the possibility to create flexibility by monitoring and controlling different energy resources in the municipalities, different facilities. For example, heating pumps. So you can reduce the consumption at certain times when the grid have problems with the capacity.
I think one of the key success factors that we have here in Uppsala is that we have very clear roles, and we as a business incubator, we work with supporting the startups and help them grow and succeed and take their product and solution to the market.
To be able to also cooperate with the municipality, the region, the university, is really powerful. And as a startup here in Uppsala, you get a lot of help, and that is, I would say, quite unique.
Well, I think working with external partners are crucial to make innovation happen, but it's not enough. We need to build our own innovation culture internally as well. And to do so, we have an innovation plan with different building blocks, for example, building a culture, setting a structure, and adding competence to the organization. And right now we're standing in our innovation lab, which is under construction, where people can come and collaborate and be inspired and try out new ideas.
Well, the future of Uppsala is bright. I'm sure that we will reach our ambitious goals. Uppsala will become climate neutral. Uppsala will become climate positive, thanks to our buzzing startup sector, thanks to our 2 universities and the innovation system of Uppsala. But the key factor here is collaboration between all these actors. Working together, we will achieve these goals.
Perfect. Thank you, Annika, for sharing that. You work very strategically with innovation in Uppsala. Do you want to develop a little bit on that?
Yes, we do work strategically with innovation, and you saw Eric in the movie, which is our mayor. And the core values of our organization is to have impact, to collaborate, and to welcome innovation. So that is the foundation that we build on. And Uppsala is one of Sweden's 290 municipalities, and we are one of the largest ones with providing support for 240 citizens today. And we are a local government, and the responsibility is, for example, city planning, elderly care, education. And we do have these responsibilities for the future generations as well. But we are an organization with 18,000 employees, so a quite big organization to mobilize when it comes to working with innovation. So we target our innovation work towards the 4 goals: climate, being climate neutral in just a few years is one of them, but also, of course, the economic pressure, job creation, and as well as safety and security. Those are our 4 main targets. But we do use innovation and collaboration with private industry as a strategic tool to see all the competence, all the innovation and technology as our R&D department, as Eric said.
And you said that you are activating the organization. Could you give us a little more information about how you do that in practice?
Yes. So activation is key, because we need to collaborate internally as well as externally. And we've worked for 5 years now. So of course this has changed over time. When we first started, activation was more or less 100% of what we focused on, making sure that we could find the people who could frame and define the needs, challenges, problems, and to coach them to go to the matchmaking and be supported by the organization by having the mandate from their manager, from IT, from procurement, for example. So that was the work of, I would say, 1 or 2 years. And then in the second phase, it's about the efficiency of the testing step in the middle of the process, and Marit showed earlier. How can we make sure that we learn as much as possible? How do we sort our needs? How do we combine them in new ways? So that required another wave of activation, and now we are in a third step, I would say, which is scaling. When we try to scale the test across organization or the size of the organization, that we have learned also requires activation and from new groups, and I will share a little bit more about that finding later. So we've done somewhere between 20 and 30 pilots within Uppsala municipality and city. And we have scaled about 20% of those, 1 in 5. I can't tell if that's good or bad, or if it should be more, but we've done that. So we know that the process is working. And another thing that we are seeing is that a team that has formulated one need, gone through the matchmaking and the test, they come back 6 to 12 months later. They come back and say, we would like to try the process on this challenge. Could you help us? So I see that as the best feedback that we can get on the power of this Ignite process.
Yes. And when you do one of these processes, how many people are in general involved at the need owner or at the department that which is running the process?
And of course, that varies with the type of challenge. And Uppsala, as I said, is a large organization. But the least amount of people that are involved, I would say, is around 5, because we need to have the buy-in from the manager, from finance, IT, and procurement, legal sometimes. as well as the needs owner who feel passionate about this challenge and is ready to change the current status and to really implement the findings. But I will share the experience of our colleagues within Uppsala Hem, our public housing company, later on, and they have run pilots in the scale where 5 were involved up to where 50 came aboard in the first step. So the scale can vary even in the first phase. But over time, I would say the fact that we have centralized support for legal, IT, and procurement, that means that for every pilot where they are involved, they build knowledge, and that is helpful for all the pilots coming after. So the first one, of course, requires much more activation, but then over time, this is built into regular development process.
Great, and yeah.
And also the more people that have been involved come in contact with the startup community, the process, that builds knowledge and that builds to our culture.
Perfect. And we've talked now about running the process and challenges and needs and solutions. And if you want to just give us some examples of the challenges or the needs that you have run through the process to find solutions for.
Yes, and they also vary, which is, I think, one of the great things about this process is generic. You can apply it to all challenges. And you saw in the film, it was a very physical need that we have problems with the capacity of the electrical grid. So we needed to create flexibility solutions. Another area is safety and security for different age groups, and where we discovered the need to build civil courage among adults in the city center. So that is a very, compared to the physical problems, a different challenge. Other areas is citizen dialogue, where we've used AI-based methods to improve the quality of responding, both in numbers and also what we learn from the dialogues. Waste management, water preservations in very different areas, because with this large organization with many responsibilities, this question is not solved once. It needs several matching. So sometimes the matched solution on the pilot is quite basic, but new to the area and new to public sector. And in other areas, it's disruptive and has not been tested anywhere before. So it includes hardware, business models, processes, and combinations. So again, I think you can apply it to almost everything. You don't always get a match in the first try, but if it's a real need, you will learn, and maybe you approach it from a different angles in a couple of months or so.
Great. So should we maybe dive into a case? I'm going to pull up some slides here, and let me see. And there we go.
Yes.
And you can start giving us a little background, and then we'll invite Robin into the discussion as representing a startup.
Yeah. And on this slide, I have visualized Uppsala City, which is this large organization. But in one of the bubbles, you see the logo of Uppsala Hem, which is it's a public housing company, and it's 100% owned by the municipality, but it's run as a limited company. And also to describe what public housing in Sweden is, it's not social housing. About 3 million people in Sweden out of 10 million people live in rental houses, and half of those are rented by a public housing company. So I mentioned 290 municipalities. There are about 300 public housing companies, so at least one in every municipality. So they both build new apartments and manage the real estate and facilities. So Uppsala Hem, they are compared to this large bubble with 18,000 employees, they are 300 employees, and they manage 17,000 apartments and have relations with 30,000 tenants. So to us, that organization is a test bed. And adding to that, they have also joined the work with the Ignite process full on and early on. So they work very systematically with defining needs in different areas. So I've highlighted a few: mobility, energy saving, digital, smart facilities, safety. They do quarter by quarter a theme where they identify needs and match. So they have done quite a few pilots now, and they also starting to build physical test beds. So they have one house that is both student housing and a parking garage, and that is a test bed for electricity storage, where Uppsala University and Volvo Cars and Hitachi developed algorithms to use the cars parked in the parking garage as batteries and to stabilize the grid. So joining back to the movie, that is part of it. And now they're looking at also the next step within the smart facility, so a test bed for digital solutions. And this is almost a straight line from starting with testing, and out of these 300 employees, over 100 has been involved in one of these pilots and built knowledge about innovation and the processes. So that creates a culture that is very, very helpful. And I've highlighted water preservation, which is the case that we're going to talk about. In these apartment buildings, there's usually a laundry room as well. So Uppsala Hem manages 350 laundry rooms with 700 washing machines. So that is our test bed. And on this slide, I think it's time to invite Mimbly.
Okay. Yes. Perfect. So Robin, are you with us?
No.
Yes, perfect.
Great. Yeah,
So-
thanks for having me. So I'm Robin. I run the sales and business development marketing stuff at Mimbly. We're a startup from Gothenburg, a bunch of Chalmers students initially that have gone through this phase and testing phase with Uppsala Hem, which has been very successful for us, and a good example of collaboration within a municipal organization and a startup like ours. So we do this product that we call a Mimbox, and it's an add-on solution for laundry machines, as you see. And what it does is that it takes the laundry water that would go to the sewer, and it takes it, pumps it into the Mimbox, filters it, analyzes it, and decides on whether we can recycle the water or if we need to discard it. But we'll always filter out for microplastics. So we even tick more boxes than only the water box that you had, Annika. It's because we also save energy since we can reuse already heated water, and we present the customer with a dashboard, an online dashboard where you can see your savings, and so on, to build on the data knowledge of your house, basically.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Robin. Maybe you, Annika, want to give a little more information about Uppsala Hems and their experience going through this pilot, and then you and Robin can talk through the case.
Yes. And I should mention that I'm sharing the work of Per Viksten and Maria Svanberg, who works very closely during this pilot. But let's go to the next slide and the learnings from Uppsala Hems perspective. This started as a water preservation need, but as Robin said, there were other benefits to the collaboration as well. So first it was one unit, and it was more or less a prototype. It was 3D printed and not in serial production yet, working very closely in one laundry room with the facility manager and Per, the business developer. And this needed an electrical installation, and it needed to work with the tenants using the laundry room, but it provided data on how much energy and how much water that could be saved. And it was it looked very positive. So after a little bit less than a year, it was decided to go to phase 2, which is just been concluded, with testing in additional 11 laundry rooms. And they took the learnings from phase 1. They did a project plan for a little bit less than a year, allowing for operational time of 8 months in these laundry rooms. And when they compiled the business case to move on to phase 3, they could see that from this dashboard Robin mentioned, that over 200,000 liters of water had been saved in these 12 laundry rooms. And what is 200,000 liters of water? I had to do the calculations, and I realized that corresponds to 3,700 showers. So one person could take a daily shower for 10 years with the water that Mimbly saved for Uppsala Hem. And the energy that has been saved, that is enough to for all the electricity and heating needed for a normal size, 2.5 normal sized villas in Sweden. And then over 20 kilos of microplastics that are not recirculated into our oceans. So that was according to the business case and the plans. But on top of that, we now have a lot of data about our laundry rooms, because the business case based on phase 1 did not completely transfer to the other 11, because they are not used equally, not in terms of times or number of laundries or which laundry programs that are run, and it affects the business case. But it also affects how much cleaning, how much maintenance, and so on that you plan for. So Uppsala Hem now has a new set of data that they can use. I also spoke initially about activation, and when going from this tight team in phase 1 to including 11 new facility managers, that created a friction and high expectation that this product would work as any off-the-shelf product, but it is still joint development. So that's the lesson learned, that for every scaling step you take, you have to plan for communication, dialogue, and time and resources for that. The third and final Uppsala Hem aspect, and then I will ask Robin what you've learned through these steps, is that Going to phase 3, this business case is based purely on financial return. So the savings in energy and water is converted to Swedish krona. And this will be rolled out to all the laundry rooms where it makes sense. But that means that we are not valuing the carbon dioxide that's saved. We don't value the soft aspect of preserved water. Water is very cheap in Sweden now, but it is a finite resource that we should conserve. What's the value of that? Over 20 organizations has been to visit these laundry rooms and to look at this, and the tenants feel proud that they are part of preserving water and capturing microplastics. And we are not at the stage where we can capture those values and make a business case. So that's what we take on our scaling journey, to scale this across the organization, to build our development and reach our goal. We have to develop the next generation of business models, even for the soft value. So, Robin, what has it meant to you and to Mimbly to have Uppsalahem as a customer?
Yes, I mean, it has meant a lot. I think if you highlight some words, I would say adds legitimacy. So for a startup, you are not well known, maybe. You come with a brand, something exciting, a bit new, but what you don't have is capital in legitimacy. So being able to partner up with Uppsalahem and to use each other a bit, I would say, in a good way, to talk about like the collaboration, the values, why we do it. That has helped us a lot to get legitimacy from similar customers, similar actors, and so on. So that's helped a lot. If we just talk in that sense, then obviously concrete values are we were able to product develop with Uppsalahem to make the product better and better. To reach that phase. And one thing that's so important for startups is to actually have paying customers, and I think that has been a very good example from Uppsalahem on how to treat startups. So I mean, we have had people that wanted to have the product for free, test it for a long while, more products for free. And I mean, if you're an organization like Uppsalahem, and you think about Mimbly as a small startup, I think it makes sense to pay a little to help that company grow and to really show that the things that they're doing adds value. So a lot of values, both financial, legitimacy, product development, I think is key factors.
And when it comes to the product development, can you share some examples of what happened in real life when you went into test?
Definitely. I mean, and I think something that's been so successful with Uppsalahem, maybe compared to some other actors that we worked with, is this expectation management, maybe you could call it. You talked about the startups being your R&D department, and if you're a company, you wouldn't treat your R&D department as like, give me the finished solution tomorrow at the best price. But you have to have some leeway to be able to product development. And Per, for example, he has been so good at understanding that, okay, you're putting in a product that's 90% done. Let's find out what the 10% extra, like what the 10% that's not done, let's find out together what that is. And that's been so valuable for us. So for example, we have this microplastic filter in the front. The microplastics and everything gets emptied in there, you take it out, you throw it in the trash. We try it in the lab 200 times, it works perfectly every time. Then you put it out in some laundry rooms, and you realize that there's 20 different people that's going to do what they think is intuitive. So in that sense, we managed to create this product that worked 90%, but then there was too much friction with that specific container. I mean, the functionality is still there, but if you're a site manager and you think it's a hassle to do it, that site manager is gonna talk to Per and say, well, this product isn't anything because this doesn't work, and then 90% of the value gets destroyed because of one small thing. So, but Uppsala Hem understood that, and instead of calling us, yelling at us, they said, "Okay, we did it this way. It didn't really work for us. Is there a better way to do it?" For example. And then we got that really good feedback from our customer, and we're able to go back, develop more, think about, okay, how can we make this work better? How can it be easier for this specific profile to go out and do this? So, within this community, I guess, or product development, you have this, you call it product champion. And Per, for example, in this case, has been such a product champion for us. So, keep rooting us on, keep being positive, having a good tone. All that stuff is so important for a startup to feel like, okay, let's keep pushing, because it is really hard to come up with a new innovation. I mean, as Annika says, it has to be function, it has to provide the values, it has to be cost efficient. And there's a reason why nobody's done it before, because it's hard. So, yeah.
And even if a product works 90%, in this case, having the data, the dashboard and the data on how our laundry rooms are used, that is additional value to the public organization that we didn't sign up for, but can be used to plan for more efficient maintenance, as well as the problem with overuse of detergents. So it seems like this is not good for the environment, that we use too much washing powder. It's not good for the process of preserving water and capturing microplastic, because it clogs the pipes or the filters. And it's something that can be addressed maybe through information, through guidelines, etc., or technology. But that's additional values that also comes. It takes time and energy and the product champion, but you also have the possibility to learn more than you expected. And this is not the only case where this happens, because you learn. We have not seen a pilot or a test that has failed if you define success as learning something about your own organization, the technology, or the startup, and the basic need.
So thank you. I think we are very close to end this, the end time, Q2. So I will let those be the last official words here, Annika, that you cannot fail as long as you include it in learnings and take it forward in another way. Or thank you so much for being in, Annika and Robin. I just want to have a couple of minutes to open up if there are any questions from the participants to Annika or Robin or about Ignite. Then you are free to ask them now.
I have a question.